1/4 of Europe's offshore wind and tidal potential.
We know that we have an estimated 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential.
And incidentally, having 25% of the offshore renewable energy potential of the continent Europe, that's also an asset, not a disadvantage for an independent Scotland.
Scotland's home to around 1/4 of the whole of the European offshore wind
25% of Europe's offshore wind
25% of Europe's total offshore wind resource.
25% of Europe's offshore wind resource can be found around Scotland's coastline.
It's estimated that Scotland has 1/4 of the entire offshore wind energy potential of the whole of Europe.
The huge renewable resources, 25% of Europe's offshore wind.
With only 1% of its population, Scotland possesses a massive 25% of Europe's offshore wind and tidal power resources.
I'm aware that Scotland's got 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential.
We are a renewable energy powerhouse, with 25% of all European offshore wind.
If Scotland has 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential,
We have 1/4 of Europe's offshore wind capacity.
25% of Europe's offshore wind capacity. The renewable resources that Scotland has are enormous. 25% of the entirety of Europe's offshore wind capacity sits off the coast of Scotland.
Scotland has 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential.
Stephen Flynn, the SNP spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, when we're talking about renewables, it's important in this chamber to reflect upon the fact that it is Scotland that boasts 25% of Europe's offshore wind capacity.
10% of Western Europe's population, 25% of the region's wind energy resource.
25% of Europe's offshore wind sits just off Scotland's coast. Scotland's potential in this regard is huge, absolutely enormous. As has been referred to earlier, we have 25% of Europe's offshore wind capacity. 25%.
Scotland has over 25% of all the wind and wave energy potential in Europe.
And Scotland has 25% of Europe's offshore wind and tidal potential.
And possess 25% of the potential European offshore wind and tidal resource.